朋友们，今天看到一段采访，挺有意思的。前不久呢，莫迪不是来中国参拜吗？后面也跟了一堆记者。那除了贾汉姐之外，还有其他的媒体。其中呢，就有一个女记者联系了在中国发展的几个印度人，对他们进行采访，让他们来谈一谈对于莫迪来华的一些看法。这几个印度人看起来比一般的阿三层次要高得多。在中国呢，基本上都有自己的事业。更重要的是，他们对于中印之间的关系呢，有自己的一套看法，而这套看法呢，区别于传统印度咖喱仔那一套天真、愚蠢、夜郎自大的风格。你可以称这几个人为觉醒后的阿三。这个女记者呢，就问他们怎么看待中印关系的，以及未来两国的合作前景。这几个人呢，就巴拉巴拉说了搞笑的事情来了。这个女记者原本带着巴拉特特有的无知者无畏、狂妄自大的，以为这几个人肯定会跟普通的阿三一样，先呢逼逼歪歪批评中国，指责呢是中国把两国的关系给搞坏掉了，然后呢接着又会说我们的智慧老先莫迪现在看到中国经济不好，所以很同情中国，要帮助中国，于是主动的选择改善中印的关系，所以中国人一定要好好珍惜这个机会更多的对印度让利，要让印度人民和莫迪老先开心才行。结果呢，这几个印度人根本就不上套，尤其是当中一个女的，巴拉巴拉一上来反而去批评印度，说她的中国客户想投资印度，在印度发展，结果呢遇到各种各样的障碍和制约，所以她就说印度应该利用这个机会好好的自我反省优化，放宽一些领域。这个主持人傻眼了根本就没想到怎么在华的印度人觉醒了呢？怎么可以说出真相呢？那还得了？于是赶紧的打断，把话筒夺过来，问其他的阿三。结果没想到每个人说的都让主持人不满意，被访问者都不顺着主持人的意思去说，而这个主持人一听到不想听的，立刻就打断他。甚至呢，其中一个直接说我不知道 I don't know， 把装傻充愣给演到底。那这几个印度人其实呢还蛮清醒的，而且我发现他们表达 yes 就点头 ，no 摇头。阿三喜欢把头摇得像拨浪鼓一样，表达 yes 的那种特色被他们给摒弃了。这几个人在中国也适应了中国这边的表达方式。说白了他们呢其实很清楚中印之间发展的巨大鸿沟，也知道造成两国现在关系紧张的根本原因是在印度本身。所以呢，你来采访我，那我必须要说实话，因为我们是生活在中国的清醒的觉醒的印度人，跟你们这些生活在南亚的十几亿的牲口是不一样的。你们被洗脑了，是在垃圾堆里刨食的那种最底层的牛马。你们以为世界都要围绕着印度，围绕着莫迪，整个人天真无知到让人发笑。所以 we are different， 而这种不仅以种姓之区隔，同样以个人的认知区隔的阶级也是非常明显的。那么我们都有一个印象，印度人呢从来不说印度的坏话，他们好像都很团结，很少有恨国的。其实这个话不对。之前我们之所以有这个印象，是因为全世界都哄着印度，尤其是发达国家，因为要对付中国嘛，所以纵容印度。但是现在情况真的不一样了。尤其最近93阅兵之后，全世界都已经认识到，想要对付中国，不好意思，这个游戏玩不下去，因为中国的军力已经遥遥领先了，甚至比他们的美国老大都要强大，那还对抗什么呢？谁压制谁都说不定了。而之前呢，印巴空战就已经证明了这一点，印度是服战强的，面对中国的小老弟巴基斯坦都打不过，更别说中国这个老大了。而印度人的口碑现在在欧美世界也烂掉了，成功引发了全球的厌恶。所以今年以来我其实也看到了很多印度的精英在批评自己的低端同胞，说他们乱搞，把各种陋习带到发达国家，使得自己连带着被歧视，受到影响了，被别人厌恶了。发达国家的人终于意识到，原来之前少数的印度精英根本代表不了阿三真正的阿三就是那十几亿的牲口，他们的表现才是印度的真实形象。而印度一旦被西方敌视，那么印度的所谓团结就不复存在了。有很多印度精英他们的利益和发达国家是绑在一起的，所以他们也开始骂印度人，骂印度这个国家。 随着印度跟西方之间的矛盾越发激烈，互相的厌恶越严重，那这种润到西方的印度恨国倾向也就会越来越多。之前呢，我采访过的贾杨特就是其中的典型。那么还有一个印度女的生活在中国，经常做一些比对视频，比如比对中印两国的地铁啊等等，她骂起印度来啊也特别的狠。所以啊，结论就是，如果世界主流国家，尤其是西方，对于印度充满善意和包容，那么印度人就不会恨国，因为没有必要嘛，恨国没有利益。可是如果敌视印度，原本宽松的国际环境没了，都是各种厌恶和嫌弃，那么阿三就绝不会那么团结。崇洋媚外的少部分印度人必然要站在西方那边，跟10几亿人口划清界限，一定会决裂的。那么接下来我们就来看看这一次的有趣采访。
Thank you so much for being here. You're also ensuring that this is not a manner that's also important. And also, as someone, from the nitty-gritty, from the law profession, I want to understand from you, what do you expect out of Prime Minister Modi's visit? There's a lot of anticipation there. You have some from, I believe you also come from Shanghai, right? Yes. And also, you're also very involved in the diaspora community as well. Tell us a couple of initiatives that you are taking.
Correct. So I think, first of all, my name is Divya. I head a boutique international law firm in Shanghai, and I specialize in cross-border mergers and acquisitions between India and China. So this visit of Prime Minister Modi, at least I can tell you, for my Chinese clients, it's very important, because what I have seen since the putting in place of Fresno 3 in 2020, a lot of Chinese investments into India have stopped, especially in very strategic sectors, especially like manufacturing, private equity, all in the manufacturing space for EVs and clean energy. So some of these projects have been really, really good, and they have come to a standstill because there is no clarity on the time which the government could take in giving an approval, or whether the transaction itself.
That's one of the most important aspects of the trade relationship right now. The Chinese investments that came in, the screening that happened, some significant blocking also that came in. What are your clients telling you? Are they now expecting all of that to open up? Because that means floodgates of Chinese investments for India as well,
and huge opportunities. Absolutely. We are all hopeful that there is some clarity on the Fresno 3 regulations. I'm not saying that there should be a blanket opening up of the Indian economy. There should be opening up to strategic sectors in a manner which is staged, so that we can screen and achieve the objective of the government, but at the same time, we're not deterring away Chinese investment.
Which are the sectors where maximum number of your clients are asking for clarity, where you anticipate most investments to come out from?
I think it's the automotive industry, especially the EV space. I have a lot of Indian clients who want to make in India, but we have to acknowledge the fact that the Chinese technology is one of the best in the world, and for the Indian automotive sector to grow as well, we need this technology. Yes, so a lot of my clients are interested in doing technology collaboration agreements with Chinese investors. But the stopgap comes when there is no equity being given to Chinese investors, right?
The problem, this is getting the gap that has existed, right? So how much we can cover that is the big thing. But that's an important point you're making. Girish ji, first of all, you're also a very important member of the diaspora. Talk to us about your stakes, your wishes, your business focus here, and then we come to how the diaspora is viewing this visit, and how much do you think it opens up in terms of the cultural connects that lie between that?
Thank you, Dory, for having me here. And it's a very interesting question that you asked. That I can speak on both the sides, not only the industry front, but also from the Indian diaspora, because the Indian community in Shanghai. So from the industry front, the euphoria is so good now that yes, something positive is going to happen between the two countries. I present a company wherein we promote the make in India. We make products in India and we sell in China, which is completely the other way around. And there is mass opening that we have people very showing interest in having many products. And the best thing is that people are now vouching that yes, we can do business with India, and the quality, earlier those questions that were there, how would it be, and all those are completely wiped out. So the interest is over there. And coming to the diaspora, oh my God, there's the very good feeling, that being an expat of India and then being in China, the kind of reception you start getting from the Chinese population, they want to get culturally involved. I daily at least, every alternate day I get contacts from people that let's have a cultural that we share between the communities.
Awesome. Yeah. So all of that. I was speaking to Bastakia ji yesterday, and he was telling me that from about one restaurant in Beijing 20 years back, he actually went up all the way to 20 restaurants. That's the kind of appetite that exists right now for Indian cuisine. But I want to then ask you, this is a question I ask all of you, which is that now what is the first and most important, I wouldn't say demand, but key expectation from this?
Most important, the direct flight between India and China should off.
And the second thing I would add is the visas, because what is happening is, even though a lot of Indian companies have entered into technology collaborations with Chinese companies, the engineers are not being able to travel to India to train the staff or the engineers of these Indian companies. So visa processing a good activity. But then let me ask you another aspect to it, which many people, which is the other side in Zelly, which is that when Foxconn engineers are given a certain view, that, when it comes to tech transfer, there is a sharper position that comes out politically in China. That also sends down a message to Delhi, doesn't it? As someone who is best placed to speak on both sides, what is your view on these mixed signals and mixed messaging that comes from Beijing, which also makes Delhi also think that should we take one step forward, or do you think it's going to end up becoming one step forward and consequently 2 steps back?
Correct.
So I think we can contemplate for our lives, right? But I think at some point, especially the juncture that we are at the moment in terms of global economy, especially with the tariffs coming in place, this is a chance that we have today. And like going back to my previous point, it has to be done in a staggered manner.
See, Gauri, this is a multipolar world. There are no permanent enemies. There are no permanent friends. So we need to work with everybody.
And that he asked this to you also, Karan, which is that so much is being spoken about Donald Trump and Donald Trump ensuring that everybody comes together. Is that, do you think, will open up new parallel lines in terms of financial and banking sector? With right now you have the dollar being the focus in terms of transactions. Everybody is saying that may not be the case if this is how Donald Trump keeps talking.
It's a very interesting question, and I honestly don't have a view on that one. And yeah.
Many in China are saying that yes, why only trade it in dollar? Russia is talking about it. Brazil has already been speaking about it. So
I don't know. Direct, do you have a deal? I can give a reply. You see, this is a multipolar world, Gauri. It is, today we are saying something. Tomorrow things can change drastically. Today people have stopped looking at long-term view. Long-term view before used to be like 5 years down the line. Today long-term view people talking about 6 months down. So things are changing every day.
So Donald Trump baat karta. Me thinks only 6 months. But I know what you're saying, that you need to probably look at immediate more than
There's a term called VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity. Okay. We are living in the VUCA world.
Rishi, any final thoughts that you would like to say, add to this?
It's like more of the interactions need to be happening, wherein the trust level should grow up further. And that's the good step that is happening between the two countries, which is now 1/3 of the population of the world. So here we can come together and then maybe create a roadmap for the whole world to then get into things. And then maybe
how do you think trust deficit will be addressed? Trust is a huge issue.
Trust is a big issue, that's true. Here and that's what both the countries has to communicate with each other to more and get involved in the activity.
Visas should need to open up. So what people-to-people contact can go up more, our relationship will become better.
Because since 2019, there was a complete stop of communication. So I think this is a step in the right direction. That's why we're all here today and we're all voting to this year.
And we'll tell you one more thing. People in China, generally people in China, they love it this. There is no discriminations like these Indians and this. In fact, we have dinners in Chinese homes. I have very good friends who are Chinese, who are relationship with us for last 20 years. We went to the children's birthdays. They come to my children's birthday.
People to people characters. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Honor Frank, for me. Well, as you heard the view that is coming from the diaspora, very important members of the diaspora community saying two very important things. One, people-to-people connectivity continues and should be prioritized going forward as well. and efforts need to be made for the trust deficit. And that's something we in New Delhi have also been saying, that trust deficit remains a core concern for the bilateral relationship to be further increased, emboldened. And where do you bring that trust is something that the onus many feel does lie on Beijing to move more on that. And with that, it's a wrap on this show. Thank you so much in terms of being part of it, all of you. This is Gauri Dwivedi joining from Tianjin, China, giving you a flavor of what the diaspora wants ahead of that crucial SCO summit that will take place here in Tianjin.